everyone. This is Rita from xgeeks. Super happy to see you here, and I'm super excited for today because I dare to say that this is one of the most special live streams that we've had so far in our YouTube channel. So this one is pretty special because it happens today, March 8th, International Women's Day, and it's our way to celebrate women, but also to try to bring even more awareness to the topic. And we think that we gathered a nice group and bunch of people that will discuss this topic with you. We'll get to that in a couple of seconds, but to make it even more special, to discuss today's topic, which is Women in Tech Strategies to Build Diverse Teams, we bring you not one guest, not two guests, but we bring you 4 guests that will make our live stream a panel discussion. So you'll get to meet them in a couple of minutes, but we'll have Inês and Silva, Chief Activist Officer and co-founder at Portuguese Women in Tech, which will be moderating today's panel discussion. We'll also have Deborah Lago, software engineering student, Débora Antunes, software engineer at xgeeks, and Luís, Soares, head of engineering at xgeeks. You'll get, as I said, the chance to get to know them in a couple of minutes, but before that, if it's the first time that you're watching one of our live streams, we're super happy to see you here. Welcome. We hope this is the first of many. So if you also have been following our work, thank you so much for that, and keep going. Make sure to follow us on our social media channels to understand what we've been up to and what we have planned for upcoming live streams as well. And if you're watching us after in the recording, that's great as well. We hope you enjoy this time with us, and make sure to leave some comments if you have them. I'm speaking a lot about us, so who is us? Let's talk about xgeeks very shortly. xgeeks is an engineering company focused on providing capacity to product companies, and xgeeks represents the perfect balance between projects and products. And our teams across Portugal work in building products while dealing with the broad stack. So if you want to know more about xgeeks, our team, open positions, our content, and more, you can make sure to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Medium, here on YouTube as well. We believe that we do some cool stuff and some cool content there. So make sure to activate all the notifications that you can. But as you know, I could be here as I think you're understanding, talking about xgeeks and what we do for the entire live stream. Let's leave that to another one. But with no further ado, let's bring our guests to the stage. Inês and Silva, as I said in the beginning, will be moderating today's panel, and we'll take over from now. But just as a reminder, we can use the comment section as a way to interact. Leave your comments, leave your questions. We'll have, of course, space to go through all of them. And please feel free to share whatever you feel it makes sense for you. So let's get into today's discussion, and I'll bring Inês to our virtual stage. Hello, Inês. Nice to see you here.
Hello, Rita. It's really a great pleasure to be here and to moderate this panel on this very important day. So very excited to be here.
Awesome. Let's get into business then. Go ahead.
Yes, that's great. So I'm going to start this panel by sharing a few data points for you to get to know. But before that, I really want you to share your comments and your questions in the chat. We'll be able to see them, and in the end, we'll have some time for some Q&A. So it really would be interesting for you to participate. So as I was mentioning, to give you a little bit background about myself. So my name is Inês. I'm the co-founder of Portuguese Women in Tech. And since 2010, I have been actively fighting to have more women in tech. And the question is why? I get that question a lot of times, like why do we want more women in technology? And there are basically 2 reasons. One is that if we want to reduce economic gap between men and women, we need more women in technology. Last year, the World Economic Forum published a study that showed that the gap between the economic gap between men and women was actually increasing and not decreasing. Of course, the pandemic had a huge impact, but there were other 3 reasons. One was, and the most important one for what we are doing here, was that women are less than 20% of the professions work in technology. As you know, this is an area of growth, opportunity, and potential, so we need more women in this area. The 2 other reasons were the fact that jobs performed by women are being automated faster than jobs performed by men. And the third one was women still have some difficulties accessing capital. So women it's very hard for women to get a loan to start their own business. And so that was the third reason why we see this economic gap between men and women. But that's why this conversation is so important, and that's why we at Portuguese Women in Tech, we have been working to solve this problem. And we have a double mission. On one hand, we want to make sure that we attract or we help women or support women that are already working technology. We don't want them to leave this field. On the other hand, we want to make sure that we attract more women and girls to this area, an area, as I said before, of growth, opportunity, and potential. So this is a few, just to give you or to clarify the reasons why we are here, and also just to finalize some facts and numbers. So for you to know, these are numbers for Portugal. 15% of the we only have 15% of women in IT professionals. So of all IT professionals in Portugal, only 50% are women. This number has been increasing slightly in the last 10 years, but not significantly. And actually, in the past, like 30 years ago, this number was higher. So I think it's important to have this in mind when we are discussing this topic. The second thing is that 12% of the students in IT are women. So this is a very low number. Again, it used to be higher, now it's lower. And this is where we actually need to make sure that we do some actions so to increase in these numbers long term. Then, of course, we have, it will take 135 years to close the gap between men and women. These are numbers from the World Economic Forum. These are numbers from last year. In the previous year, this number used to be 100 years old. So it's actually, this is the impact of the pandemic, and this is something that we need to pay attention. And then 78% of women in IT have heard sexist and rude comments because they are women. And these are numbers that we take from our Pioneer study, and also give us an idea of some of the challenge that women that are working in IT face every day. So these are just some numbers that I wanted to bring to our discussion. But now I think that we need to go to the most important thing. So I'm going to stop my screen, and I'm going to invite the other speakers to join me on stage, so we actually can have a discussion around who they are, what they have been doing, and how they see this topic for themselves. So Deborah Lago, I'm going to start with you. So actually, before we go there, we have two Deboras. We were, before the start of our conversation, we were talking about it. It's not a name that is very common in Portugal, but we managed to have two Deboras in our panel, so it's great. But I will try to say your full name when we have this conversation. So Deborah Lago, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? And this is important because you have a very different journey. And I think a lot of times people have this idea that there is only one way to get to IT, but as you'll show, there are actually a lot of different paths, and yours is quite unique. So Deborah, go ahead.
Thank you, Inês. Thank you, Rita, as well. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I am Deborah Lago. I'm 30 years old. I am from Brazil, north of Brazil, Belém. But I moved to Portugal in 2018. But to arrive here, it was quite a journey. So I first graduated in dance. I used to work with dance for 10 years, almost 10 years. I used to teach dance, contemporary dance, and used to dance professionally as well. So that was my first contact with the professional world, was in arts. And during the amount of years, I realized that I needed a little bit more because arts, unfortunately, as we know, it's not a very steady financially. So I started getting a few management roles still in arts and project management as well. But then I did an MBA in marketing and management. I loved it, but it still wasn't working in dance. So when I decided to make a huge career change, I decided to come to Portugal as well. So it was everything from zero. And that's when I decided to study software engineering at FEUP in Porto, because I always thought that technology was the way going forward. So it was something that I wouldn't have to worry a lot in the future. It was a financially steady, and the market as well, the field is it's very, very rich in that sense. And then, but inside the university, I noticed that me and coding were not a very healthy relationship. Like, I know how to code, I've been learning a lot, but I was a bit with an imposter syndrome, and I was almost about to give up the course because I thought that wasn't for me. But then I met Inês and Liliana from Portuguese Women in Tech, and then I started participating in the programs, Mentorship Program, Future Female Founders, and then I got the chance to find a community where I could know there are a lot of different paths inside tech. I didn't need to be a programmer to be in tech. And then that's when I started looking into more management roles. And that's where I am now. I'm a product manager in Radically Digital. So here I am.
I think, like, you mentioned 2 points that are very important. So one is, like, as I mentioned, there are no clear paths. Everyone has a different path and to get to tech, and yours, as I was mentioning, is quite unique. But also, again, I think a lot of people, and for example, I do a lot of like visits to schools, and for kids in schools, there is only one career in technology: is the hacker. So that's what they see on the TV. But as we know, is there are actually many more career paths, many more things that you can do depending on your personality, of what you like and don't like. And what you are mentioning is exactly that. Like, you, even though you wanted to work in technology, you find a place where your skill set and your personality actually fits. So I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly it. So I learned to value my background instead of just leaving it behind. Yeah, that's really what happened. And thank you, Inês, because you had a very important role in that, actually, you and Liliana.
Yeah, I paid Deborah to say this, so that's why she's saying no. But that's the job of Portuguese Women in Tech. That's creating those opportunities for people to really, by talking with more experienced professionals, to really find a path for themselves. So now I'm going to Débora Antunes. So Débora, please share with us a little bit about you and your path in technology.
So thank you for the invite. I'm really excited. So as Rita and Inês said, I'm Deborah, and I'm an iOS developer at xgeeks. And my path in tech is a bit unusual as well, because I actually started with a bachelor degree in biology. And even though I love that area, I just couldn't picture myself working on a lab every day for the rest of my life. So during my bachelor, I discovered that there was this field called bioinformatics. And I actually contemplated the idea of going to get a bachelor degree in engineering and not in science. So I thought, well, this is perfect because I can do both. And I went to my master. And in the end, I discovered that to really work in that field, I needed to get a doctorate. And in that point of my life, I just didn't imagine myself continue to study. I really wanted to start working. So I started to applying for a bunch of companies in the tech industry, and xgeeks accepted me, and that's how I got here. And now I am a software engineer.
Mm-hmm. That's great. It's again, you started by saying that you have an unusual background, but as you can see, there is like, I don't think that there are unusual backgrounds. Everyone has an unusual background. I interviewed 12 professionals in IT, and all of them, with no exception, started our conversation by saying that they had an unusual background. So as we can see, like, everyone does. So Luís, it's now you. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your path here?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Luís. I started as both Deborah's in not a typical way. So I left my university degree to do a type of bootcamp, which is super common now, but 10 or 12 years ago was not that common. And that was the way I actually entered this area. So I started as a backend engineer, worked a lot of years as a backend engineer, and then started managing teams. And the time passed, and now I'm working with Débora and with Rita, and also with Lili with Liliana at xgeeks, where I am the head of engineering. I think today is worth mentioning that I also have 2 little daughters that I'm really proud of, and I think that would be really cool if they had the opportunity to also join this area and experience this type of community that we have in the area, because I think this is one of the most important things around technology. Not only the highest salaries, or at least higher than average, but also the communities that are involved in our companies, and in the languages that we use to work, and everything related with meetups, with conferences, everything, which is really cool. And it's a great opportunity for everyone that is listening and thinks that they can change, or they want to change. There's a lot of doors. I think everyone here can help. So if anyone listening feels that they need a change in their life, I think everyone here can help with that. And I think that's it for my presentation.
Thank you, Luís. But I'm going to go back to you because today is, as we mentioned in the beginning, is International Women's Day, and you are here, and you are the only man here. And I would like to have your perspective. Like, why do you think it's important to celebrate this day? And yeah, what's your take on it?
Sure. So I think we all agree that women have a super important role in society. I think that's something we all agree with, and I think it's really important to have a specific day to commemorate that, and to give visibility to the tremendous effort that some women do every day to keep things moving forward, because sometimes that's what happened with a lot of women. So I think it's really important from my perspective to commemorate this day, to celebrate it with your families, with the ones that are important to you. For me, with my mother, with my wife, and my kids. And yeah, and if I relate this to tech, I think it's also important to mark this day, as you said, because it's super important to have more women in this type of area. I don't think usually we say women in tech and we think about coders or developers. I think it's much more than that. I think Deborah Lago, you said this, or you touched this. I think women in tech is much more than that. Our tech nowadays means a lot. So from people to product to design to engineering, so it's much more than just developers. So I think it's also important to commemorate women in tech today, in this very special day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Luís. Deborah Lago, what about you? Like, how do you see this, like this day? And like, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think the main goal of the day is to raise awareness, because it's not that we're just have today to celebrate. It is a celebration, but it's also a very important day to raise awareness, especially in the tech area, because as you showed, the numbers are not happy numbers. So it's an important day for us to come forward with strategies, with initiatives to make those numbers go higher. And I think it's a very important day as well, because I've been noticing a lot of initiatives because of International Women's Day with girls. So I think it's a very important thing to generate excitement about the tech industry early age. So Luís said, I would love my kids to go to this area, but in order to do that, we have to start getting them excited from an early age. So get STEM toys, get initiatives in schools that embrace that initiative. I think that's the main goal.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because something that we have been studying a lot at Portuguese Women in Tech, to really understand like what can we do to actually make a difference. And what we realize is like we need to start like spreading these messages as early as possible, because when girls and boys, like when they are in the 10th to 12th grade, their decisions are already made, even though sometimes they say like, I don't know exactly what I'm going to study and so on. But that's not where we actually should like really share what technology is. I think we should start sharing much earlier, like 5th to 6th grade. It's very important to share like what actually means to work in technology. I usually, when I go to schools, I realize that for boys, working technology is be a game developer. For girls, it's something that they just don't want to. And because like they don't have role models, they don't see themselves in an area that's where people are not like them. But we know that's not true. It's just like sometimes the media, like a lot of the stereotypes that we have in our head. So that's why it's so important, like Deborah was mentioning, like to share like the toys and as early as possible to share like technology is for everyone. And I usually say this and people are very surprised, but there was a time where software developers were only women because hardware was for men and software was for women. Of course, it was a very different time, and the technology of that time was it was of course different, but still, like women were the software developers, and I think it's very important to show that there's definitely opportunities here for women to work in this area. So Deborah and Antunes, now, from your perspective, what do you think we can do? What we individuals can do, but what companies can do for us to have more women in this area?
Well, as you said, I think it needs to start at a younger age. I think the young girls need role models, need to see that it is possible to grow up and be a successful woman in these areas that are dominated by men. Mm-hmm. And women can be comfortable being themselves in these areas. And I think in this point, what companies can do is maybe if there's an event where young children can see a lot of different paths in career paths, they can invest in this type of events, and instead of showing the common image of a man who is in tech, they can show a woman, and I think that would help them grow up and see there are other paths. Mm-hmm. And also in the company, fortunately, in xgeeks, I always felt welcome, and I never felt any less than any man here. And I know that in other companies, this isn't true. I think maybe because men are the definition almost of this area, sometimes we have different ideas and different thoughts that are disregarded. So I think what the companies can do is being aware that these things happened and try to encourage women to speak up since they are a minority, but they can have a voice and they can express their thoughts.
Yeah. No, for sure. There is I saw a quote the other day that said that we talk a lot about diversity, and sometimes we also talk about inclusion, but we rarely talk about belonging. And what they mentioned is that like diversity is to be invited to the party, inclusion is to be invited to dance, belonging is to dance like there is no one is watching. And I think it's a lot of what we were saying. It's like it's not only about like having the numbers, because the numbers are, of course, are the easiest part, even though I know it's very hard. But also make sure that women feel that they can speak up. Women feel that they can be themselves and they can be valid members and contributing to the growth of the project, the company, and so on. And I think that's for sure a very, very, very important. Luís, from your perspective, as in like what men can do to also contribute for more diversity and inclusion?
Sure. So I think I was always lucky enough to have women working with my teams or as colleagues or as a manager, but I think this is an effort that it's greater than men or boys. I think this is something that even touched the country and the politics, as Deborah said. This is something that all of us need to do an effort, both boys and girls. I think girls need to be available to show themselves and say, hey, I'm here, I did it, it's possible for you to do it as well. Look at the career path that I did. It's no different from any man that I know, so you can do it. Men, I think, need to show that there's and any woman that joins this area will not be treated differently. I think this is the most important thing. Okay, to show that, okay, you are here, you will be treated with respect. You will be treated in terms of progression, in terms of the opportunities that you will have the same way. But I think I just wanted to touch on this part where we need to put more effort from a younger age to show that it's possible to have different alternatives and to work in this technology area, either by providing more toys. I think toys it's obviously the easiest way to show kids that STEM is a possibility, and I think there's very cool projects that we could actually use in our schools. And this obviously touches money and touches politics and touches educational programs. But I think all of us need to do a bigger effort into this. And I think it's important to as I said this already, but to sometimes volunteer and be ready to go to a school. I think you do this, Inês. I'm not sure, but to go to a school and to explain how things work, what possibilities do you have. I think this is something that both women and men should and must do, because I think if you look at this area and I really believe that in 30-40 years, this coding skill is something that will be as common as reading or writing or being able to do simple math. Okay, so if you have this into consideration, I think it's obvious that we need to put a lot of effort in education and in visibility, and I think it starts from there. And I think if we do this, obviously we will not solve it now, so we will not increase the number of women in tech magically right away. But I think if we look into this in a longer term, and if we put this type of policies in place, I think organically we will get there. And I think we will get there because we really need to get there, because as I said before, I truly believe this is a skill that everyone will need to know in the future, at least from my perspective. Obviously, maybe I'm biased, but I think this is something most of you can relate with.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think sometimes we undervalue our own impact. When we did the Pioneers report, we asked the participants that we interview, why they decide to pursue a career in technology. Of course, a lot of them say because of I've been passionate about technology, so I decided to pursue a career in technology. But there were also a lot of them that mentioned the influence of an older cousin, an older family friend, someone in their lives that inspired them to make a decision. And I think that's very important, because a lot of times when we have these conversations, we talk as if we made decisions in a vacuum. So the context that we are in, what's happening is not important, because I've always wanted to work in technology, so I will be a software engineer. But the reality is not like that. It's the reality is we make decisions based on our family context, our school context, who we know, what they are doing. So and that happens a lot. Whenever I go to a school and I ask who knows a women engineer, 99% of the time people don't know, or women work in technology, 99% of the time they don't know anyone. So I think that's why our own circles, we can definitely make a difference. We can definitely make a difference there, sharing what we do, sharing the impact of our work, sharing what can be accomplished as part of working technology. I think that's very important. That's one thing. I think as companies, and going back to what we were discussing, there are a few strategies that are important. So as I mentioned, the diversity, inclusion, and belonging. There is actually a very interesting story from NASA. So NASA, I think it was in 2013 or 7, I don't remember. They were very happy, and they published everywhere that for the first time they had a class of like new astronauts that was 50% women and 50% men. So that was celebrated around the world, especially because like in the very beginning of NASA, women were not allowed to become astronauts. So we came a long way. But then when the moment for the first like spacewalk, like that moment, I think all astronauts like are looking forward so that for that to happen, they realized that they didn't have like space suits for women that fitted women, because women bodies are different from men's bodies. And so that's the lack of inclusion. So it's not only necessary to be diverse, but it's also necessary to be inclusive. And that also has an impact on other things. So for example, in terms of job roles, right now, if you look for a job post, a lot of times, like it says, like the ideal candidate, and sometimes the ideal candidate is actually a unicorn. No one can be the ideal candidate. But what happens is like women only apply to that job, I think, is if they have at least 90% of the skills and competencies asked for that job post, while men apply if they only have like 40%. Which means that women, because of like the way they are raised and so on, we exclude ourselves from applying to certain jobs, not because we might not fit there, but because like the way it's written and some of the words that are used, and also like the fact that they are looking for a unicorn, basically makes us as afraid to apply, because we feel like we won't have the skills and the skills needed. And I think these are the small things that we need to be aware of. And there is something called unconscious bias. I'm sure that you've heard of it, where we all have this. So our brain, because it's a little bit lazy, and because we have to make a lot of decisions every day, we start building from a very early age stereotypes in our heads, in our brains. It can be gender stereotypes, race stereotypes, age stereotypes, and so on. And so in terms of gender, what happens is like we immediately associate certain things to men and women. And for example, the way we perceive men and women in certain situations can be very different. A man can have like strong personality, but the woman is aggressive and abrasive. Or when in a moment from recruitment and or promotion, a woman is actually evaluated by her experience, while a man is evaluated by his potential. Which means that very early on, right after leaving college, it starts making a difference, and that's why we have the gender pay gap, and that's why we have a lot of this gap, and that we have been talking. So I think it's very important to see this. But Deborah Lago, I would like to ask you. You mentioned, like, of course, the mentorship program, and actually, mentorship inside and outside companies is actually one of the strategies, one of the best strategies to really close the gap and give women the resources to succeed in the job market. Can you share a little bit about your experience, what you learned from that, and how can that be helpful for others?
Yeah, of course. So what I got most about the mentorship program was there are a lot of people that are in the same path that I am, not exactly the same path, but they are still building their own paths, even though they have years of experience, even though they are older than me, and everyone is trying to learn what is best for themselves. And then being able to join a community like this, it was very important to me, and especially the mentor that I had, because she's also a project manager. She is a project manager and in social impact initiatives, which was kind of close to where I was coming from. And so I got this notion that before that, I had this notion that everyone is saying here, that to be in tech, I needed to be a developer, that to be in tech, I needed to be a hacker, or I needed to be the best in the computer. But then in the mentorship program, I learned that's not true. Like, there were a lot of mentors that didn't work specifically as a developer, especially my mentor. And I think it was a role model. Exactly what we have been saying. That's the importance of a mentorship, because it's tailored, it's suited to your necessities, to your needs. And it's a two-way path, isn't it? I needed something from her because I need the guidance, but she always also, I think, learned a little bit with me because she saw that I had something that I wanted to put inside the field or something like this. So I think mentorships are one of the best ways to raise awareness inside the company, because as you said very well, Nish, it's not enough to just bring women into tech. Like we can bring a lot of people into tech, like we can make children want to work in tech, but then if we don't have the means inside the company to actually retain them and actually make them belong, what's the point? They are gonna give up. They're gonna stop the way in the middle of the way. And visibility of leadership roles, women leadership roles inside the company, it's very important to know that there are actually other women in the leadership roles, that you can actually be as one of them. So I think it's an important thing besides mentorship as well.
No, for sure. And there's a lot of conversations about that. And of course, like quotas, for example, no one likes them, but they can be important for us to have more women in leadership roles, so they can inspire the next generation of women to actually be able to achieve that. And so that's for sure an important thing. Deborah and Antunes, I'd like to ask you from what kind of advice can you give, especially women that are in university or women that are in other fields that might think that technology is not for them, or are afraid to try to pursue a career in technology even though they enjoy it. What can you recommend? What is your advice for these women?
So I think it's important to know that sometimes being surrounded by men can be a little bit intimidating. It seems like they are so natural in doing these things in tech, and for a woman, it seems like we need to work harder. But I read somewhere that that's actually not true. It's the way we process things as a woman versus the way men process things in their way. That make us believe that make us disregard our achievements. So I think the most important advice that I can give is grab any achievement that you can get, and try to have confidence in your skills, because your perception may be wrong. You may be doing a great job, but because as a woman, we are trying to fit in the world's men, and we ended up not being ourselves. But that's why it's important to be in the team, because women contribute with their own perspective. So we need to be confident in that. We need to be confident in our thoughts, in our insights, and in your skills.
That's a good point, because there's a lot of studies that show that more diverse leadership teams or more diverse teams can actually build better products and better solutions that perform better economically and financial. Because as you mentioned, I think when you are developing a product, you are usually developing a product for men and women. So to have everyone's perspective in the team, it's super important to really to add value. And and this is not me saying, it's just a lot of studies on that. Luís, I would also like to have your perspective, what you advise, what are your advice for women that might want to pursue a career in this field?
I think we touched the main points, right? So find a mentor, find an example that can guide you. Don't be afraid to aim high, because there's actually there's no ceiling for either you, just because you are a woman, there's nothing, there's no ceiling. So you can go all the way. You can reach the same level title as any man in this area. Create a group or a community that can help you grow. But I think this is something that I advise any developer, not only women in tech, but that can share different perspectives about problems, that can give you different insights about the technologies that you like. But I think the most critical thing, I would say it's the point that Deborah Lago made about having a mentor and having a plan, because I think this is, when, just to touch on the bias, I think I'm a little bit biased on the other way around, because I was lucky enough to work with. So when I think about the women that I work with, I always think about one of the most competent engineers or product managers or designers that I ever worked with. So I really associate women with competence, which is it's amazing. And I think I always saw that having a female engineer in a squad makes a big difference in the dynamic of the squad, and can actually bring a new level of delivery to that squad. So yeah, I think all of this together, it's good points to. So it's good suggestions. I'm not sure if I'm the best one to give them, but I think we touched the main points.
For sure, Luís, and I think that's important point. I think I like from you, because you mentioned that when you were in college, you left to do a boot camp, and I think a lot of women are actually maybe thinking about that, like maybe like asking themselves, is it a good idea to just leave whatever they are doing, college or work, and go through like a coding boot camp? Can you share a little bit more of your experience, and how was that for you?
Sure. So at the time I did it, it was a different time, because this type of courses were still paid. Okay, so the bootcamp I did, I was receiving some money to actually do it, which is very different from what we have nowadays. And I think this was much easier. And I think this is something that, if we really want to improve on this area, maybe we can revamp this type of initiatives, because it's much easier for someone to take a risk, to take a leap, and to say, okay, this is not what I want. What I want is to do something different. And I think touching also on the point that you said, that women only apply for a job when they meet 90% of the criteria, maybe it's also related with the risk that women are willing to take. And I think it compensates. So I think it compensates to take this risk. I think this is my main advice, because right now most of bootcamps ask for 6, 7, 8K to you to be part of it. And I know that some people don't have this possibility. So my main advice would be, I think it's important to take this risk, because long term it will compensate. And I think you will look back at those 6, 7, or 8K, and will be nothing compared to the change that you achieved in your life. So from my experience, which was very different, very, very different, because my boot camp took around 1.5 years. It was very different. It was sponsored by it was different. It was sponsored by the state. So my main advice would be, take a risk, take a leap, and believe that this will change your life, because I think it will. This area will continue to grow, and there's no indication that you are not doing a good decision. Okay.
Thank you, Luís. I want to go back to Débora and Antunes also, because, like, as you mentioned in the beginning, you are an iOS developer, and I can imagine that in your role you are also learning every day. So you never stop learning, and I think that's also an important message for everyone, because I think a lot of people feel like they have to go into this area and they have to know everything. But I can imagine that it's like you are always continuous learning. Can you share a little bit more about that, Deborah?
Yes, of course. Actually, because I had the master in bioinformatics, I came with almost zero skill in iOS developing. I knew how to code, but not in that language. And actually, xgeeks took a risk, looked at me and said, this woman wants to learn, so I'll give her a chance to learn. And they helped me. They gave me a mentor. They helped me with the courses, and I learned almost from zero in this company. So I think it's important to know that in this field and in science, because I also have experience in science, it's a never stopping learning path. You're always learning. You don't come to the job and know everything already. No, it's a continuous work.
And also things that change quite a bit, right? So it's not only because you can always continue to learn, but things are always changing as well. So it's important for you to keep be updated about what's happening, new languages, new ways of doing things, frameworks, and so on. So I think that's also what's actually is very exciting about this area. I think. Deborah, for you now, going back to my previous question that I asked Luís and Deborah about advice, I think it goes also from your perspective that for you are still in school, almost finishing, but I think it would be interesting for you also to share what could you share with professionals, but also with people that are still in school, how can they better prepare themselves to enter the job market? Something that you already did, but could be interesting to have that as well.
I think the biggest advice I could give would be make connections, meet different people, completely different people from yourself, go to events. There are an infinite number of free events nowadays in tech. They are from talks like we are having here to courses online or to just meetups. So just go in and throw yourself and meet new different people, because all the connections that you make, you're gonna always learn that there's no right way, and you can always have friends for life, because you have people in the industry that went through what you're going through. As studying, everyone had a different perspective when studying. I have friends that are loving the course, that are loving to code, and I'm not very keen on coding. But so even though inside the same course you can have completely different perspectives, so meet new people. That's one of the main things, and look for events, because that's what made the biggest difference in the world for me, to feel like I belong in the tech industry, actually. And that's where I learned a lot about myself and about how is to be a woman in tech, basically. I think that's
very important. I think we all should find our peer group, people that like us, that are going through a lot of times similar paths, similar challenges, and we can learn from, we can support, and they can support us. And actually, I'm going to use this time also to share that the mentorship program that Deborah mentioned, we have the applications open yesterday. So if you know women that are just finishing university or about to finish university, or they are already in the market with just for 1 or 2 years, and they want to be part of the program, we have 50 slots. So it's going to be a third edition. So it's going to be very interesting. As Deborah mentioned, it's about learning from someone that is already in the market, with 5, 6, 7 years of experience. Learning from peers, that's also very important, learning from people that are going through exactly the same thing, and also learning about how to prepare a CV, how to network, how to prepare our LinkedIn, and so on. Things that I think sometimes we don't value as much, but they can be very helpful, especially when we are just starting a new job. So basically, this is it. Thank you very much, Deborah and Luís, for being here and for this conversation. I think we still have a long way to go, as I mentioned in the beginning. So according to the World Economic Forum, 135 years for us to close the gap. And I think, but I think these initiatives, talking about these, understand what can be done, understand which initiatives should be supported, and how we could develop, can definitely be very, 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 very helpful. We need more women in this area, and I think the way to do it is really to share the benefits of actually working in this area. Share what all of you do, and inspire the next generations. So thank you. I think we are done here. So yeah.
Okay, I'll just drop by here to finish, just on behalf of xgeeks and of course everyone joining us today in this live stream, to thank you, Inês, Débora, and Luís as well, for joining us for today's live stream. I think, as Inês said, we still have a long way to go, but I think these discussions, and we spoke a lot about awareness and using the community with these purposes as well. I think this is also a small step that can have hopefully some impact. So we want to thank you on behalf of xgeeks to you as our speakers that have joined us for today's talk. I think it was super insightful, and I think I can say on behalf of everyone that it was very nice. So we hope to not only see you again next year, but also throughout this year to discuss a lot of different topics with you and with the rest of the community regarding women in tech. And thank you once again to everyone that joined us for today's live stream. We hope to see you again on the next one. So you know what to do. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel and you can follow up on the next events. And thank you once again to everyone to join us. Have a very good rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.